Welcome to Santos on Sports alongside Chris Santos. This is Paul Santos. I'm coming unraveled, but I'm going to try to hold myself together tonight. We are brought to you by Scotty's Pub, located at 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. Citywide glass, 3 locations in Dartmouth, Fall River, New Bedford. Lakeville Athletic Club, located at 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis and pickleball. And attorney John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street, New Bedford. You can get more information about John at johnseedlaw.com. Chris, how are you doing this fine evening?
It's been a busy day for me, Paul. After work, I had some practice I had to get to, and traffic was a little tough, but we're here. We're ready to go, and let's talk a little football. And I know that we talked last week about some Zappy fever, and we had 50-50 on our last broadcast. I'm interested in seeing what callers think now and what Belichick did last night, in which way the direction should turn for the New England Patriots. So call us and let us know what you thought of last night and which way the Patriots will go now as they take on the New York Jets next week. 774-762-6234. Let us know. Give us a call.
Well, I got to tell you, Chris, I'm looking at that game last night, and one question jumps out at me. Yep. What the heck was I watching there? What was that? What kind of a game plan was that? This sort of like, I'm going to play this guy, I'm going to play that guy, and maybe I'll play this guy. Like the team can't really, I don't think, get ready and focused when they think they're going to use a little bit of this guy and a little bit of that guy. Why not just come out right from the beginning and say, you know what? I don't think Mac Jones is 100%. Perfect excuse. He's not 100% yet. We're going to put him in next week. We're going to give Zappy one more game. And then if Zappy goes out there, he wins, he loses, whatever, then you have a reason to bring Mac Jones back next week if he gets beat. But if he wins, you play, you win, you keep playing, okay? That's point number one. Point number two, what happened to the defense? That defense was a joke. This team only put up 15 points a game going into this game. And what were they running? They were running like something you see down at the youth field down here. Wildcat, snap it to the guy runs, gets first down. Snap it to the guy runs, guy gets first down. Veer left, veer right, run over here, run over there. We'll just snap it to Chris Santos and let him run because nobody can catch him. And that's it. That's it. That was a whole game. I mean, that was just terrible. And, I know that Zappy in the second half didn't do that well either, but I would venture to say that a lot of it wasn't his fault. Jacoby Myers on the handoff to Jacoby Myers' fault. And then every single damn time that Chicago got the ball, they went all the way down the field and got points. So by the time Zappy, by the time he was down like 3 scores, then he started throwing the ball around. You know what I mean? And then once they know that's coming, then they're going to have interceptions. Hey, he didn't play that fantastic either. But again, here's a third-string quarterback that has very limited, NFL experience, that is being thrown in a very difficult situation and almost as good as the guy that was there before. But anyway, this idea that you're going to play both of them and you couldn't make up your mind who to play, that was a devastating, almost like a rookie mistake. I mean, I don't know what Belichick was thinking. Far be it from me to question the greatest coach of all time. But what in the world was that? What kind of a half-assed game plan was that? That's the way I look at it. I mean, I think it was just an unmitigated, total, embarrassing disaster on national television.
Well, you're throwing an awful lot out there at us, Paul, and let's go with one thing at a time. Let's start Let's start with the first one. You're talking about Belichick's decision. Now, according to sources, Belichick said, I was going to play both quarterbacks during this game. I found that kind of strange because I usually don't see that in the NFL level. I might see that at college level. I might see that at high school level, but not often do I see NFL level playing 2 quarterbacks at one time, which he said they would both do. Now, that being said, Mac gets the start. Okay, the situation there, obviously, you have to go by what the game plan is. You have to go by what you see. And what he saw right away was unacceptable to him, throwing off his back foot, not moving, not very strong on the pass on the first interception, kind of floated, made it look easy. Obviously, now you get the crowd on you. Zappy, they're yelling that, want to get him on. So, they try to make their decisions of what they want to do. Well, what's he do? He brings in Zappy. Now, does that mean he cut the leash on Mac too quickly? I'm not sure. Some people will say yes. Some people will say no. But now you bring in Zappy, and look what happens there. He gets to the point of a good start. The crowd's with him. They start to score. Good things start to happen. But then now, Paul, you go to your second question. The second one is, I leave Zappe in now. But again, where was the defense? This is old school fashion football by the Chicago Bears. That's all this was. Old school football. Three-headed monster running at will from Montgomery to Hebert. And, of course, they could not get Fields off the field on third down. He killed them once again with his legs to get first downs on third and long. They had no answers, no speed defensively to get to those three guys. And then, obviously, when you get to that point, you're trying to find a ways to stop. Couldn't wrap up and tackle like they normally do. They, inside the red zone, dominated in there with old school running football and just took it to New England and hammered them. And that's why they scored that many points. Of course, now Pat's trying to come back with Zappe. Now you get a lot of things going on. Tip balls, interceptions. Next thing you know, things are not the way it should be. And it's an easy loss for the New England Patriots. Not what I was expecting. And I don't think a lot of people, maybe even Chicago fans, were expecting to see that kind of victory in New England the way they did it. But they manhandled the New England Patriots up front.
Well, I got to tell you, the two things that you mentioned there, the defense and the disappointing failure of the New England defense, just a colossal, total collapse. And you remember last year, I was very critical of defense coming down the stretch. That's the thing that really killed them in the home stretch last year was the defense, number one. Number two, if Mac Jones was, favoring the foot and wasn't quite 100%, why start him to begin with? Why not just let Zappe start the damn game? So we're going to get to that in a moment. And you mentioned Chicago. I think you mentioned the Windy City. I think I have a call coming in from the Windy City, as a matter of fact. Good evening. You're the first caller here on Santos on Sports. Mark from Chicago.
Yes.
Boy, oh boy. You do not want to be a Chicago guy going in the office this morning when the Celtics get their ass handed to them by the Bulls and the Bears won the Super Bowl. My
goodness. Oh, what a rough night.
Guys, hey, I got to tell you, I'm sitting there, and thank goodness I declined all offers to go to a bar last night because that would have been brutal. But listen, I'm watching the game. I took a bunch of notes, and I want to talk Zappe versus Mac. I want to talk about the defense, and honestly, I want to talk about Bill. And Chris knows this, and I'm just a sales guy, but I've been critical of Bill over the years. I've been it was more Tom than it was Bill. I'm going to tell you right now, and somebody's got to prove me wrong. I think last night was the worst performance, and that was again, I think it was the worst coaching performance in Bill's career with the Patriots, in my opinion.
I agree.
I think there was a stat, Mark, and I don't know if you brought it up or someone brought it up.
You and I agree on a lot of this stuff. The defense, to me, in fairness, I thought they've played better at the beginning of the season. They had a pretty solid month of September and into October. And if you look at last night, 4 sacks and an interception at the half. But again, speed is a problem, and they couldn't contain Fields. And I'm watching that game last night, and I'm thinking of Josh Allen in the last Bills game. 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11. And he's running for a first down every time, and he's running past the outstretched arms of Judon. And I'm going, they just can't catch the guy. How can that happen?
Yeah, I agree, Mark. And I just brought that up, that speed was something that was very, very common when you need to slow down these running quarterbacks. And we've seen Lamar Jackson do it against them. Now we've seen Fields do it against them. They need to find something, whether it's a spy, whether it's just more in that linebacker position to control and contain and get to those quarterbacks. But they could not do that at all, which led to now maybe coming up, and now Fields throwing over the top a couple of times. The big throw he made to Komet toward the end there was very big. That was another one. So you're thinking he's going to run. Now you put some guys there, and now he dinks and dunks you with the pass over the top. So they have to get better in that position, and it showed up again last night, as it has with Lamar Jackson too.
Yeah, so Mark, let me ask you this question, right? I'm looking at that defense, right? And you're absolutely right. There was sacks, interception. There was a lot of individual plays. Judon made some great plays himself. But then you talked about the third downs. I think there was one that was like 3rd and 25 or something, and they had him dead to rights. And I'm thinking, oh, we're going to get the ball back here. And next thing you know, people are running by him. They're over pursuing. He starts running. They can't catch him. It's really frustrating to watch if you're a Patriots fan, or I guess, this would happen to any team in this situation. And it's like, come on, tackle him. Somebody tackle him. Somebody get him. And they just couldn't get him. And so that, to me, that was just, very frustrating to watch on the defensive side of the ball.
I think when you look at it a couple ways, and you talk about the speed on the defense and the way their defense is played. Everybody talked about it. Hey, guess what? We're going to make Fields throw the ball. We'll contain the run. And he didn't really throw the ball very well. I think he had 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but they couldn't stop him. And the problem with this defense, no different than last year, is they can't afford to lose anyone. It was clear to me last night, not having Barmore there hurt them. When Duggar went out, second half, it hurt them. And it was Judon and nobody else. And, I mean, listen, it was embarrassing. This team, I live here. These guys are on the radio all day talking about Chicago. They can't score. The over and under for the first half was 6. These guys can't score. They look like they could score every single time they get the ball. And they just over pursued the guy. Now, I go back to Belichick. And they're also talking the coaching staff for the Bears. This was their best game of the year. They've been complaining about Fields every week, and he had 14 runs last night. 10 of them were designed runs. It wasn't just scrambling. He was clearly running with the ball. That was what they designed into the game plan. Yep. The Patriots had no answer. Phil had no answer.
I mean, it was like something you see at a high school game where the best athlete on the other team, is the quickest and fastest guy, and you just snap the ball to him and let him run it. That was basically it. It's something you see down in the, in the youth football league or something. So to me, that was frustrating. But I want to get back to your point too, Mark, about Belichick and perhaps his worst coaching performance of his career, right? They say he's the greatest coach of all time, right? So I'm like, all right, well, suppose Tom Brady played for Bruce Arians for 20 years. Does that mean he would be the best coach of all time? You know what I mean? He only had 1 year, won the Super Bowl, So, and again, they had a lot of other great players too. We've argued that over and over ad nauseum. But, I'm looking at this during the week, and it's like, who's the quarterback? Who's the quarterback? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Just make a decision for Christ's sake. I mean, you're the greatest coach of all time. All he had to do was say, look, I'm looking at Mac. He's cleared to play, but I don't think he's 100%. And I don't want to send him out there. This is our franchise quarterback. I don't want to send him out there at 80% or 90% or 95%. Plus, this other kid's playing well. I'm going to give this other kid 1 more week, and then he's all set. But this idea, well, I want to play him. I don't want to play him. And Patricia wants a zappy guy, and the other guy's another guy. And now you heard, I think it was Jacoby Myers made a comment about what a terrible treatment that Mac Jones got. Now you got dissension in the ranks. Other thing's going to come unravel. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots only won like 6 games at the end of the year after all this has happened.
Well, I'll tell you, that'll take me to my comments on Zappy versus Mac, and then I'll hang up and listen, let somebody else call in. But I'll tell you, when you talk about Bill, and listen, great coach. There's no denying that, absolutely. Right. And he's got the hardware to prove it. But, I think the days, and I'm like you, Paul, I watch all the press conferences, and I am so sick of no, yes, that's hypothetical. We put the best thing in for the team, or, we'll discuss that later. Somebody asked a question. Hey, you said you wanted to use both quarterbacks. What was the reason for starting the second half with Bailey? Okay, answer. Hey, I saw something in the first half that I thought that was the best for the team. That's a hogwash answer. And here's the truth, guys. Maybe Bill thinks they're both just average quarterbacks, and he doesn't know what to do. Maybe he just thinks, and reality, maybe they just are 2 average quarterbacks. They're not Mahomes or Allen or Herbert or any of these other young quarterbacks. They could just be 2 average quarterbacks.
Yeah, but what about, Chris, what about making a decision, though? He still had to make a decision, so why not make a decision like 48 hours, 72 hours before the game? I mean, we went into Monday, and we still didn't know who was going to start.
Well, there are some times, Paul, that injuries come up and you see what happens in the pregame to see how they look, to see how they feel. You talk with the trainers, you get all that advice, and then you figure out with your coaching staff, all right, he's good, let's go with him. Or, hey, it just doesn't look right, we're going to sit him out, now we'll go. That's not the problem that I have. The problem I have is how fast he got rid of Mac, didn't have confidence in him at all. So that means, all right, then why start him at all? Then number two, now you get Zappe in, and then, you get what that is. But now what happens this week? What's Bill's decision this week? Is there something that we're going to wait until game time again to come up? Or he's finally going to turn to his team and say, guys, I'm going this way, and this is the way I'm going from now on until that guy gets injured and he can't play. Then I'll move on to something else. So I'm waiting to find out what happens this week. Where does he go from here? Mark, what do you think he does? Where does he go from here?
Well, again, he's got to be very careful here. And I think one of the things that was concerning to me last night is when you heard Jacoby's comments, and I also heard one of the offensive linemen said, hey, we had no idea he had a plan to play both quarterbacks. And some of these guys were surprised when Zappe came in the game. And one of the reporters asked him, hey, did you pull Mac because of performance? And listen, he went 3 and out. Little bit of a drive on the third drive, but then he threw the interception.
Yes.
And Belichick says, absolutely not. That was the time that I planned on making a move. Yep. That's about as bullshit as you can get. The offense wasn't moving, and that's when he made. Now, personally, for me, I think he should have stuck with Zappe one more game because it was clear to me Mac didn't look he looked very tentative. I know he scrambled a couple times, but he looked rough on a couple of the runs. And for me, I would have given Zappe one more game. But now going forward, he's got to be careful. And I think after one more week, if Mac's healthy, Mac has got to start the next game. If Mac does not start the next game, that guy's shot. He's mentally out of it. Because I honestly, I don't know that Bill really knows what to do.
And it's funny to say that because he's supposed to be the greatest coach of all time. So how can he not know what to do? I mean, you have to decide. And picking up on Chris's point, right? There are times where you have to kind of look at the guy before the game and all that. But I would argue that that's more of the case where, you really have nobody playing that well behind him. This guy was on a wave, so it wasn't like you needed to rush him back. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The second guy was struggling, and the third string quarterback was struggling, and maybe Hoyer was in there, wasn't doing so well. Hey, we got to get Mac back in there. There was no need to rush him in there because this guy was doing well. It's a different situation, I would argue.
That was such a clear decision, Paul, that you could have gone another week with Zappe. Now, again, like I said, if Mac doesn't start next week against the Jets, I think that guy's psyche is done. And honestly, listen, tell me with 3 bad drives and they're down 10-0 and the crowd's going bananas, Zappe. I'm telling you, that swayed Belichick. And he made that decision, and it was a bad decision. But, we'll see what happens next. Listen, Zappe's a third stringer. He's not going to be, hey, I go to the bench. They got to start Mac next week if he's healthy.
All right, Michael, thank you very much for calling in from the Windy City, and I'm sure that the city of Chicago is really enjoying this double beatdown of our New England teams over here.
Hey, listen, the only thing that would have been worse for me is if the Blackhawks played the Bruins last night.
All right, Mark.
Hey, I'll enjoy the rest of the show, guys, and let's hope things get better.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Mark from the Windy City tonight here on Santos on Sports. 774-762-6234. Chris, any follow-up thoughts there?
Well, listen, Paul, let's not forget, okay? The critical point of that game, in my opinion, the score was 17-14, 1:30 left. Myers fumbled the ball. Remember where that was. This is a time that they were kind of marching, starting to move the ball. Let's say he doesn't fumble, and they score, and they reclaim the lead going after that. Things could have been a little bit different, but that fumble hurt. They came back down. I believe Chicago kicked the field goal. And then after that, the Chicago defense took over. They played very well, and let's give them credit too. I think they're like third in the league against the pass, but they held Stevens and Harris to 47 yards combined. Stevenson and Harris combined for the two of those guys. So you got to think about Chicago stepped up their game on the defensive side just as well as doing what they did on the offense. So that was a critical point in the game in my eyes when that play happened there. But, you have to stay with it and keep going. But they could generate no offense in the second half. Meanwhile, Chicago continued just to kill them on third downs, continue to move the chains on 3rd and 7s, 10s, 11s, and just kept doing it all night long. And they just didn't have the answer for it. And so back to the drawing board they go, and they'll figure out what to do against the New York Jets, who have been playing very well as of late, too.
So deflating when you got the guy in a 3rd and long over and over and over again, and you just can't hold them and they get the first down. It's almost worse than if they just get a first down on top of a first down, because it takes so much work to get him into the 3rd and long in the first place. Some of them were 3rd and very long, and he still got the first down. I just couldn't believe it. But hey, it is what it is. And the other thing too is, and we got a caller coming in right here, but the other thing too is that, once the Patriots started to fall like further and further behind, you couldn't establish the run. You couldn't do all those little things to build the game. If you notice those games that Bailey Zappi won, they had the running game going. They had Stevenson going. They had the offensive line going. He'd be using the tight ends. He'd be dinking and dunking and play action and all that. Once you fall behind by 2 and 3 scores, now it's like, hey, they're sitting back there waiting to intercept the ball, and that made it even harder for Zappi.
Sure.
All right, Ryan is in Mattapoisett. How you doing tonight?
Hey, guys, how's it going? I'm doing pretty well, considering.
Okay, Ryan.
Your prediction about what the record is going to be at the end of the year is looking better by the week.
Yeah, but I certainly wasn't thinking of a loss by the Chicago Bears of all times. That was just as dysfunctional of a debacle as I've seen in a long time. Listen, and on a night where I was expecting, Bill to pass George Halas against the Bears at home, he just got out coached by a rah-rah doofus by the name of Matt Eberflus. We couldn't stop the run between Justin Fields, David Montgomery, and Khalil Herbert. I knew that Justin Fields was fast. He ran a 4.4 at the combine, but I wasn't expecting him to look like Lamar Jackson tonight. They made them look like a competent offense, and they had just been scoring 15 points a game beforehand. And I got to say, the way that they ran the ball on us, that concerns me for this coming week against the Jets, because I know, Breece Hall tore his ACL. He's down for the year, but they just picked up a really good guy by the name of James Robinson, who hadn't been used in Jacksonville up to this point. Mm-hmm. So that's really concerning, not to mention the way the Jets defense has been playing. They look like the 49ers back in 2019 when Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator there. What? And the QB situation, first of all, if I remember correctly, I guess Lisa Salters for ESPN had asked Bill if we were going to be seeing Zappi for the rest of the game or something along those lines. Apparently, Bill or someone else had said that Bill was going to play Mac at some point in the second half. Well, that was a blatant lie, because Bailey Zappi played for the rest of the game, and what a tease that was too. Mac Jones plays like garbage, throws that interception. Crowd goes nuts for Bailey Zappi. They put up 14, and then the defense was an absolute letdown tonight.
Yeah, it was, and it's interesting too how that momentum really switched, Ryan. Because when he came in and gave you the 14 points after being down, you think maybe the defense would step up and say, hey, man, we're right back in this, and let's get it going. And then, again, that critical fumble was really big from the Myers exchange. That really hurt them. And then after that, they just couldn't get Fields off of 3rd down and couldn't get him back to the bench. He just ways to find lanes. And he's in our other caller just said, he ran 10 out of the 14 times was a design run, because they knew he was faster than the defense of New England. And he just took advantage of it, continued to move the chains. And then when you doubled or tripled, then once in a while, he'd go right over the top, hit you over the top and get his tight end or a wide receiver. And he had you reeling on his heels. So it was kind of that up and down kind of a night. And it just could not get going in the second half of the New England Patriots on offense.
Yeah, and you had mentioned how Justin Fields was faster than everyone on the Patriots defense. Yeah. That was a concern coming into the year, and I was hoping that, getting a Mac Wilson, getting a Raekwon McMillan, who hasn't even played all that much, hopefully adding some speed to some younger speed to that linebacking core. They were, how should I put this, non-existent tonight. Yeah. And I will say too, the amount of tipped balls was absolutely ridiculous. Like the last Zappy interception, that was 100% his fault. Why are you attacking their best corner? But the other drives before that, it was just tip ball after tip ball after tip ball, and like you said, we couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was a game that you're going in thinking, hey, I think we have a W here. Chicago hasn't really shown much. Been okay on defense. Don't get me wrong. They, Roquan Smith, still got that team fired up and can get in there, and they're pretty good against the pass. And so I thought that would be kind of something. That's why I thought it might be a low scoring game. But I thought the Pats could be, use their run, still be effective at home. I just think maybe the emotion of who's playing and who's not playing really took its toll on the entire team and the night and the situation, and maybe nobody really knowing what's going on, because that's what it sounds like when you hear from all these reporters today. And it just didn't seem like everybody was in sync of how that game was really going to work last night.
Well, that was the thing too, Chris, why I thought you stick with Zappy one more week, because it's easier to have like this guy 3 games in a row and then that guy, 3, 4, 5 games in a row. You know what I mean? But now you get into a situation where you can't go, well, one week it's this guy, oh, he stunk. Well, next week it's that guy, he stinks. Okay, next week. Now it's just, you know what I mean? You can't get any kind of momentum going.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And Ryan, I asked the last call, I'm going to ask you, where does Bill go from here? What do you think he does with this quarterback situation?
I mean, I don't have an answer for that right now. I really don't know. Like, my gut, if I were in that situation, I don't know how you can go back to Mac in this situation, because the fact that, just after a few drives where he wasn't getting anything going, you yank him, and supposedly when your thought was that you're going to put Mac back in at some point in the second half, and you just play Zappy for the entirety of the game, I don't know how you can do that, go back to Mac Jones at this point.
How do you feel that is on Mac? If he does not start this week, I mean, is that a psychological thing, or does he just sit back and say, hey, I got to take it what it is, and I'll be there for Bailey, and I'll fist bump him and high five him, and we'll go over the chat, and I'll be the backup, and I'll get in, and I'll get my chance when I if he gets injured, or if he's not doing the job, maybe they'll put me back in. Psyche.
Well, I'll say this: if we ever see Mac Jones up on a press conference podium again, and whenever we see him on the field, he's going to act like he's all good with it. He's going to take it as it is, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But deep down in his head, I think that's gonna be, he's going to take a psychological hit until such a time that something pops up where he gets an opportunity down the road.
Yeah, that was unbelievable when, they were chanting Zappy, Zappy, and what a roller coaster ride. I do my Paul Santos live variety show from the Whaler Inn, so I didn't want to drive home and be late, so I stayed at the Ryan's Pub, which I very rarely, almost never watch a game in a bar. So I go in there, they're behind whatever it was, 10-0 and so forth. And then Zappy. So, of course, Zappy comes in. The first thing he does is throws that bomb, right? That gets caught, and the place starts going crazy. This is just in a bar. Yeah. Then he throws the other bomb. That one gets caught. Now they're ahead. And it's like, we're pumping our fist. Zappy fever, baby. Zappy, dappy, mama, baby. I was making a fool out of myself. and then about an hour later, I'm like, what the heck just happened? We were like going up this thing. Oh, we found a new guy. We found the it factor. This is the guy. Yeah. The whole thing of that. So I don't know. It was definitely an emotional roller coaster back and forth for the fan, which is fun. But I just remember, like, an hour ago I was feeling like on top of the world, and now I'm like, what the heck just happened? It was a weird night for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And it went from that excitement you were talking about. It's funny. I was texting a buddy of mine who was actually at the game, and one of the first things I asked him, like, just how loud was it when you saw when everyone saw that Zappy was warming up? Be like, oh yeah, it was loud. They were chanting his name before he even started warming up, which is going to be the next thing that I asked him. But we went from that excitement to thinking, okay, we're in a situation where it's like the classic old football saying, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Yeah. So we just don't know what the hell's going on now.
Chris and I were texting back and forth. Ryan and I were texting back and forth. I was texting with my sons, right? And I was like texting Chris, Zappy baby, oh yeah, Zappy mama, oh yeah, the fever is on, baby, Zappy baby. And we're all going back and forth. And I was looking back at the text after. I was looking at the text this morning. I'm like, what a bunch of fools these people are. We were all caught up in the whole thing, It's so funny. And then at the end of the night, it's like, oh crap, seeing right down the chute, But hey, that's what makes it fun to talk sports and watch football. It's a pastime,
Absolutely.
and we all enjoy it. Hey, thanks a lot to your usual excellent contribution to our show.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yes, you must have laughed to yourself because Chris is always joking with the overreaction of the Patriots fan. You won some Super Bowls, and now you're all walking around with your chest down. Now all of a sudden you lose a game. It's the end of the world. The roof is falling. The sky is falling. Then the next game you win again. Oh yeah, baby, the kind of thing. Well, this happened within an hour of each other. I'm texting Chris, happy baby, mama, happy zappy. Happy days are here again, and everything else. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute. Whoa, big fella. Patriots fan Santos, Paul Santos, calm down. Let's drop it down a notch. The fever is breaking here. And we kind of came back down to earth a little bit.
Well, the one that I laughed at because I was at a friend's house and there were some people over there, Paul, and one of the guys actually had Mac Jones and Zappy on his fantasy football team.
Ooh.
And he's sitting there going, who do I stop? And he's waiting as long as he can. And he's asking everybody to get on the phone and see if you can find the information. Who's starting this game? I need to know. And he was getting a little bit anxious. And so, of course, he starts Mac because Mac started. And then obviously all this happens. So it wasn't a really good night for him, unfortunately. But, how that all transpired. And, of course, how we watched the game. And, once it started to go, and as Salter said, maybe Bill said that Mac would come back. He was rooting for Mac to come back in the second half. That never worked out. So a lot of emotion for Patriot fans, absolutely going through that whole game. But for us, Paul, don't forget we had a guy named, I call him Cousin Cairo Santos.
Yeah, I know, huh?
Kicking some field goals out there for Chicago. I call him Cousin Cairo.
Well, the funny thing is he looks a little bit like my son Dylan,
Yeah.
He definitely has those Santos genes,
Yeah.
So, when we're watching the red zone and something like that, he kick a field goal, hey, look at Santos, but then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to be kicking 50-yard field goals against the Patriots, that son of a gun. I'm like, I texted my son Dylan, I'm like, Dylan, look at Cairo Santos, he's kicking 50-yard field goals. What the heck is this?
It was funny because my brother was working the game, and he took a picture of him warming up, and then he sent it to me. He goes, hey, Cousin Cairo, he's ready to play. I go, great.
All right, let's go to DJ in Dartmouth. You're on Santos on Sports. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Yeah,
Hey,
doing great. I'm very interested in your take on last night's game.
It was definitely a tough one to see, I'll tell you that. I've been listening to you guys and some of the guys that have called in, and they nailed some of the points, like you said. Going into the game, it was already reported that Mac Jones was still not 100%, still not even maybe 90%, and they still went with him to start. You could tell right away in the pocket he was not comfortable at all. Not comfortable at all. And then I actually was texting my buddies after the first drive, how many more drives till they start chanting zapping to go in? And the next commercial I see, the zappy chant's already started. So, that wasn't good. And it's just, they should have just started zapping, to be honest with you.
Right. That's what I thought too. Chris, what do you think?
Well, I didn't get the report like he says about, 90% or whatever he was. But I did notice, as our caller is saying, that when he did drop back, you have to have that bounce and that fluidness moving around. And I know he's got that big knee brace thing on, and it looks ugly looking. I can't stand when them guys wear that, but they do. And it just looks like, but you're right. I didn't think he looked fluid. He didn't look confident. He didn't look like, hey, man, I want to be here and step up and really lead this team and get some down there. And of course, when he throws the pick, he's on his back foot. He's falling backwards. The thing floats. It's got nothing on it. So that was kind of some of the things that I was looking for in those first couple of series. But I think you're right there, DJ. He just did not look comfortable at all out there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then even leading up to the game, everybody's saying, that don't start zapping the rest of the year, start zapping the rest of the year. But you have to realize he went against the number 32 ranked defense in Detroit, and I believe the number 30th ranked defense in Cleveland.
Correct.
And he put up those numbers. So, that's all skewed. I've never been I was never the person to, Mac's done. No. Mac's, I still believe in Mac, and Mac is the guy. But I'm not going to lie. Last night when he sat at the bench and Zappy comes in, throws that touchdown right away, and then another TD drive right after that. I mean, I'm pretty sure with a lot of New England fans, you got Mac Jones being a first-round pick. Then you got the later-round guy coming in, just like, Drew Bledsoe, the first $100 million contract quarterback in the NFL, and Brady comes in, I'm sure every fan in New England thought about that once, but I mean, after the game just went sideways after that. I mean, you can't really go to Zappy right now. I mean, if Mac is healthy, he's got to play, because right now Mac's confidence is all-time low. I mean, you guys heard it. Once Zappy went in, once he stepped in the game, the whole stadium erupted. I mean, I think it even panned to him during the game, obviously. But that he just looks stone-faced. But I mean, I think Mac's a professional. I think he handles it. I mean, I also saw a report, Jeff Howe, who covers a lot of Boston sports and works for The Athletic. There was an article about how during these last 2 weeks, it really showed that Mac, not that he's a head case or that he's like more cocky than he is, and there wasn't really a great valid standpoint to that. But I thought that was a little weird that came out right before that game, when all along it seemed like Mac has been that true professional. I mean, he was the first one to actually go up to Zappy after his first touchdown pass. So
yeah, I really like that. I really like that.
Yeah, and I think that's professionalism, and most of them guys will do that. And let's look at another guy. Let's look at Matt Ryan, going to be benched this week for the Indianapolis Colts. And they finally said, Hey, listen, we've played 6 games. We've had enough. We are not getting any production. This is Matt Ryan, who I think was not that bad with the Atlanta Falcons and decent. And we're sitting Matt Ryan. So to sit Matt Jones and to put this guy in, same thing what they're going to put with Sam Ehlinger, who played for the University of Texas, who's going to get now, maybe he's a backup, but still nobody that we really know of for the Colts. And they're doing that with Matt Ryan.
He hasn't even thrown a pass in the NFL.
Exactly. So, I mean, if that's happening there, you're sitting back going, hey, we're doing what we think can motivate this team or move this team. And I don't care if this guy's a 20-year veteran. And that's what they did with Matt Ryan. Never mind a couple of years with Matt Jones. So interesting this Sunday against the New York Jets. Who gets the start? And the reasoning behind it from Bill Belichick.
What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen, DJ? Do you have any idea?
This week or the rest of the season?
This week.
No, this week.
Jones
this week they're playing at the Meadowlands, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Bill in his press conference, you can't dissection any of that. Because he's the one-word guy. But if Mac doesn't start, I gotta think, man, he's gonna get in his own head. I feel like. I mean, he's still a young quarterback. Yeah, it feels like he's been there a couple of years, but no, he's still in his sophomore year. And I mean, to do that to that kind of person after just injuring his ankle, I know they were 1-3 when he got taken out, and Zappy, went on a 2-0 run. But I even told you the teams he went against. But if they truly don't go with Mac Jones, it's either he's not healthy or it's just, I have no idea.
Well, go ahead. I hope they make the decision, Paul, and it's not 2 series Mac, 3 series Bailey, 2 more series Mac, and they keep switching around. I don't go for that. I don't think that's normal. I hope they don't do that. I hope they sit back and say, this is the guy. I've decided he's the man. That's who I'm going with. Until he gets injured, that's the way it is. Or I'm benching him, and now I'm going with the other guy, and that's who I'm going to stay with. This interchanging between series, I've never seen that in the NFL. Very, very rare.
Yep, definitely not in the NFL. I think you said earlier in the show, college, high school, and even You see it with maybe at the end of the year with teams that are like rebuilding or basically, tanking or whatever. They try out just to see what people have. This isn't like that. This is mid-season. We're 500. Well, now we're 3-4. It's not something you can do. We don't have a hard schedule in the next couple of games. You have a bye week coming up. It's not that time to do that. In the NFL, you stick with the guy, you go with it because it gives the team more morale. It gives the team someone to know who the guy is. Not like the press conference the other day when Myers even said he had no idea, and he felt bad for Mac how that played down, that he's injured, and then the whole fan base turned against him.
Right. Well, that's another reason. I've already given my reasons a number of times why I would have gone with Zappy, and I did last week before the game was even played. But here's another reason that kind of came up during the conversation, right? If you had started Zappy, right, and he either would have played well enough to try to win the game or at least come close to winning the game, or he would have, started to stink the place out, and then you go to Jones. And then that would have avoided that whole thing where you're like, Zappy, bring Zappy, and that would have avoided all of that. So this whole embarrassment of Mac Jones, that never would have happened had he started Zappy on top of everything else,
I agree with that.
Absolutely. Especially like I said, Mac Jones did not look comfortable at all because after taking 3 weeks off, you need to get another feel for actual gameplay. Practice is a lot different, even if you're facing your own first team defense, it's a lot different. You're not gonna get hit like you are in games. And you could just tell. You could just tell on his feet. I know he had those 2 short, like a 9-yard run, 6-yard run, little scramble that he didn't look too bad on, but he just didn't look right. And that's basically through 3 series away with the 2 3-and-outs and then the little short drive and the interception. So who knows what momentum we would have had with Zappy right from the start.
I guess we'll never know, but we'll have to see what happens next week. It's the schedule is not getting any easier, and so I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But anyway, DJ, really nice to speak with you today, and it's really enjoyable talking sports with you, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, DJ from Dartmouth on Santos on Sports, 774-762-6234. Hey, that schedule, right? So remember how we would go, I think that's a win, that's a loss, it's a win, that's a loss. Man, I think you could almost throw that out because think, look at this, right? You get the Jets, the Colts, and the Jets. Okay, well, the Colts are kind of, struggling like you just mentioned before. How about those 2 Jets games, right? Those, I don't know what's going on with the Jets. I mean, we'll talk about that in a moment, whether they're frauds or not, but they're 5-2. Then after that's the Vikings, no easy one. Then you got the Bills, then you got the Cardinals, then the Raiders, then the Bengals, then the Dolphins, then the Bills. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh my God, I mean, again, the Patriots, hey, they look really good the week before and the week before that. Last night they didn't look so good, but how many of these games can you really say that they can win? You know what I mean? Maybe half of them if you're lucky. I don't even think they can win half of them. I mean, I'm looking at some of these teams. Let's start with the Jets, right? 5-2, right? Mm-hmm. Who they've beaten, how they've beaten them. Are they frauds or are they for real?
No, I think they have something. I don't know if they're a playoff contender, but they've stepped up their defense. Zach Wilson is finally healthy. He's back in there. As Ryan said, they just traded for James Robinson from Jacksonville because they lost Hall. They have Michael Carter as another backup who's not bad either. So they still got their running game going. But I think that team leads by their defense first. And that's what their head coach does very well. He did it with San Fran, and he's bringing it over here to New York. And right now they've shown that they can hang in games and try to, win it at the end. They went up to Lambeau, won up there. Didn't look great on offense at all, but they did it with their defense. And they did the same thing in Denver, which is a tough place to play too. And they come up with a win there also. So, he's got them believing. And if they get some offense together to help that defense out, they could make a little push.
The funny thing about this year's NFL in particular is that every week there's at least a few games you go, oh my God, I never would have seen that coming. Right. So you look at the Bears, right? Patriots lose 33-14, right? So the sky is falling and all that. And it does feel like the sky is falling. Then you look the week before that, they beat the Browns 38-15. And it's like, oh boy, we're just like, oh yeah, we're turning a corner here, well, the Browns aren't that good. The Bears aren't that good. The Lions 29-0. The Lions aren't that good either. So you took three teams that aren't that good and you went 2-1 against three, not so good teams. So what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, who's better between the Browns and the Bears? Well, on that particular night, it went the way that it went. So, are we, looking at this too negatively with the Bears as opposed to maybe we looked at it too positively when it was the Browns and the Lions?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, you looked at it as a win on your schedule, Paul, is
Yeah,
what we're trying to
I
say.
know. Mhm.
And so when you have that in the back of your mind, and then to lose the way you lost, and then all the controversy that goes with it, now it's just an explosion. So this week is going to be a complete explosion until you get to the next game, which is, of course, on Sunday. And again, it's any given Sunday. Anything can happen in the NFL. So if they come out and do something and beat the Jets, everyone's going to say, well, wait a minute. Why couldn't they do that against Chicago? So, it's a lot. That's just the way it is in the NFL week by week. A lot going on. And sometimes it's mismatches. Sometimes it's how you match up. It's sometimes how you look at other quarterbacks. Can you handle them? Can you not? Maybe they'll handle Zach Wilson better than they'll handle, Josh Fields. And even when they play Lamar Jackson, who are more running quarterbacks.
Well, there have been 7 games played by the New England Patriots, and I know it fluctuates a little bit depending on who has the bye week and all that.
Yep.
But the Patriots have 7 games under their belt. And, so that means about 7-8 weeks ago, you and I got our pens out and we went through the schedule and we did that whole thing. Well, I think that's a win. That's a lot. I mean, it's just for the fun of it. You know what I mean? But think about how much that's changed, because we put the Jets down like, oh, that's a win, and like just went to the next game, like didn't even give it a second thought that that the Patriots would lose that game. Oh, the Bears, yeah, that's a win. Yeah, Jets, that's a win. The Bills, that's a loss. Just kind of went down the whole thing. And now you're looking at these 2 Jets games, and I mean, I don't know. It's just things have changed so much in just the last 7-8 weeks.
Well, it's one game at a time, and you try to figure out what's our best game plan to take this team. Yeah, you would like to probably split against them. You've been winning mostly twice over the New York Jets. So I'm not saying it's not possible that they can't do that. They still can. They just have to right the ship, and they got a week to do it, unfortunately. And it starts with the best player on the team, which is the quarterback. So they have to get that right, and they got to get it fast and figure out that everybody's on the same page and then do the right things.
The thing is, though, right? Like, I wanted to see at least a repeat of last year, 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for most, teams around the league, they say, well, you got greedy because all those years with Brady and all that. But, they were 10-7 last year, so I thought was all right. That was really good. Bounce back from the year before and the Cam Newton year and all that. Let's go at least do 10-7 again. Well, for them to be 10-7, they got to be 7-3 the rest of the way. 7-3. Right. I'm looking at the schedule. You're saying, well, maybe they can split with the Jets, and that's not good enough if they're going to try to win 10 games. They got to win both of those games against the Jets. So, I mean, if we're just looking at 8-9 or something like that, okay, split with the Jets. But, I want them to win both of those games because otherwise they'll never get to 10 wins.
Yeah, and let's remember, Paul, not only that you have to do that, but these other teams are playing better and their record is better. So they could have better than 10-7. And beat you to the playoffs because, their record is better than yours. So that didn't happen last year. That's why the Patriots got in. But let's say, the Jets go 11-6 and now they could get in. Even Miami still playing pretty decent football, getting up there, or someone from another, the other divisions that start to, maybe make a move and get up there and pass them. So, the things have to work out right when you don't win your division. How can I get into the wild card? But other teams are doing the same thing.
Right. And, a lot of these teams that they're playing, right, you mentioned it, whether it's the Jets or say even like a Vikings or I think the Raiders, I have a feeling they may make another run here. Bengals are starting to play better. Dolphins. You got to win head to head. Because when you get to the end of the year, if you have the same record as them and they had a better, like 10-7, say the Jets are 10-7 and the Patriots 10-7, which I don't see it, but let's say it is, then you got to go to the head to head, so that they have to win these games for that reason. In fact, probably the Jets game and, the Raiders and some of these bubble teams, beating them is more important than upsetting Buffalo, for example, for that reason.
Well, yeah, because if you're talking about specifically not fighting for the division win, fighting just to try to make the playoffs, yeah, you got to beat the other playoff teams that are close to you record-wise. So they all come out big. Obviously, we only count out the AFC teams because that's the ones that the conference you're in. So the Vikings, I can't put aside there. Yeah, you want that win, but, they're in the NFC. So, Cincinnati's another one. Started off slow, starting to turn it around. But by the time you get to them, where will they be? Right in the hunt with Baltimore to try to win that division. And whoever doesn't wants to make the playoffs. So it's going to be difficult.
Scott Borowitz typed in, how about them Cowboys? Well, look at the outfit that Chris Santos is wearing here tonight. I recognize that star a mile away. Oh, just a hat. All right. Well, the colors that you have there seem to match up too, just by the look of it.
Yeah. Well, the hat comes first right now, and again, I thought it was exactly the way I had it in my head. Dak was rusty. He did some of the things to not turn the ball over, enough to get yardage down the field, enough to get the run game going, and win the game against Detroit. But I'm hoping that another week under his belt of practice to get him fluid again, get back with those guys, with Gallup and Lamb, and get that healthy once again up front, and then with Paul and Zeke, keep doing what we're doing. So I'm hoping he's starting to get back into the shape he was before he got injured. But I just can't tell from 1 week playing Detroit.
All right. S.J. Correa just sent 200 stars, which you can click if you are enjoying the show. So thank you very much for that. Thanks. Chris DuPont makes the comment, Paul is really fired up tonight. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Then he says, go Bruins. So that's good. The Bruins are playing the Dallas Stars tonight, as a matter of fact. And Mark Sylvia from Chicago, who called in a little earlier, he says he forgot to mention Trent Brown. My goodness, was he awful? Bears were the more physical team. And actually, Trent Brown had a big penalty, which hurt the Patriots in that game too. And that's another thing that went wrong at a particular time. So, yeah, Trent Brown, he was somebody that Bill got, that put in there, that it had kind of almost like an all-pro season a couple of years ago, but hasn't really been that good.
No, and the second half of that game showed no offense. And again, you start with the line to give protection, to give running lanes, to make it happen up front for them. They just could not turn the page and get it going. And then obviously when you're chasing, now you got to protect. So now you got to throw the ball more. And as Ryan said, a lot more deflections, which can lead to interceptions, which did happen. So everything just got negative and went really down for the New England Patriots in that second half.
Well, I heard a number of people say that one of the things about Bailey's barely 6 feet tall, right? I mean, there have been great quarterbacks. Drew Brees comes to mind, but obviously, if you're Tom Brady and you're 6'5" or whatever it is, you know what I mean. That 5-6 inches gives you a little bit more of a lane. Now, I know you complimented Bailey about how he was able to find those little spots and he threw the sidearm and everything else, but then, again, that height thing hurts you a little bit, I guess, according to some experts. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, yeah, you like to be, everyone would like to be Justin Herbert size or even Brady size, where you could see it obviously a lot better. But a lot of guys adjust and do the right thing, and and they can do the same thing. And I mean, even saw from Fields last night. Did you see Fields a couple of times right in the face, come way down on the side and throw like a little screen and got it right there? A great camera angle. Guy caught it, and then he went all the way. So and he's pretty tall too. There are times you just have to do what's right at that particular time, and so not everybody does it the same way. Hopefully they'll learn from it and get better to block for them. Because, Paul, when you get blocked, most of that time, the defense is penetrating that offensive line and they're getting to you faster. And so they're closer to get those hands up instead of you jumping off the ball and keeping them back. And now it makes it tougher to time.
It was almost comical in a way being a fan last night because, when Zappe first came in, first it was okay. I think basically Mac Jones had 3 possessions and didn't go anywhere and all that. And then the fans were Zappe. So, all right, I hope he's going to bring him in. All right, let's see what happens. He brings Zappe in. And it had to be one of the first or second plays. He just goes back and throws this bomb, right? So I'm standing there and I told you I'm at Ryan's pub. I'm like, what's this? I was like, something. It's like, oh my God, what was that? That was like the last thing you expected him to come in and like throw a bomb like that and to have it get caught. And then in the second possession, he threw another bomb. Now, the first one, they're saying that, hey, that ball probably wasn't as well thrown as we like to think it is. The receiver, was it Myers, was doing a twisty turn and everything else trying to catch it. The other one was a 50-50 ball that even Mac Jones threw one of them to Devontae earlier in the season. So, but just to come out and throw that, I mean, looking at this ball and things like it's a Hail Mary, for God's sakes, on the first play, and the crowd's going wild. Like, what is going on here? So it was kind of comical to see, the fans chanting the guy's name, and then the first thing he does is go out there and throw this big long pass, big long bomb, really.
And in fact, I think his first completion was a 5-yard in pattern, and he just zipped it fast, and as soon as the crowd went absolutely bonkers on a 5-yard pass. But it was like, hey, we made a completion. We moved the ball, so that's a stop, and that's how I felt about it. But as the game went on, I liked what I saw, and you're thinking, okay, now here we come, here they go. But it just never got going, and the defense for some reason was just not there last night, just not there. You can't just rely on Matt Judon the whole time,
right? You remember a guy by the name of Blaine Locker? Blaine Locker is a goaltender for the Bruins, right?
Yes.
This was probably like 30 years ago or something.
Yeah.
They brought him in, and for about 2 weeks, he was the second coming of Ken Dryden,
Yeah.
And Blaine Locker and and then right down the chute, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in sports, there's always the possibility of the flash in the pan thing. Again, it's too early to tell, but it's so easy to jump on that bandwagon and just get sucked in by that whole thing. Hopefully we're on to more than that here, that maybe, Zappe can become good and then Mac Jones can get his groove back and we can kind of do something here. But, that whole flash in the pan thing, that can happen and has happened a lot in sports over the years.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen it in all sports, whether it's NBA, to the NFL, to the NHL. We've seen tons of that. But Paul, right now, who has moved the ball for you? Who has put points on the board for you?
Zappe.
And it's been Zappe. So that's my reason behind it. Unless I really see something out of Mac during these practices coming up that shows me he can move the ball in the NFL and score, I think I got to start Zappe because he's actually moved the ball and scored points for you.
I mean, at this point, you know what I mean? I'm looking at that Browns game, establish the run, get the ball moving, dink and dunk a little bit, little play action, some good play calling here and there and try to kind of build the game in that fashion because that's the way the Patriots are going to win. Let's face it, right? Yep. You can't be trying to have these come from behind victories and everything. And again, once Zappe got those 2 scores, he had the lead. So, but still, you know what I mean? To get the lead and then the defense doesn't help you. You know what I mean? So, hey, I think you could arguably try to do to the Jets what they did to the Browns. You know what I mean? That kind of a game plan. You know what I mean? That slow, methodical, dot the I, cross the T kind of thing, Yeah. But anyway, all right, well, let's take the opportunity to thank our sponsors. John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. You can go to johnseedlaw.com for more. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis, pickleball, and more. Citywide Glass, 3 locations to serve you at 425 State Road in Dartmouth. Additional locations in Taunton and Fall River. And Scotty's Pub, located at 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. And how about those Cowboys? Those Cowboys, are they 5-2? Oh man, 5-2. Wow.
You know what? And in third place.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Well, exactly that division.
All of a sudden now, Daniel Jones is the coming of Tom Brady, according to the NFC, and all the Giant fans here in New England. I feel now Daniel Jones. He's the fastest guy out there. He's the fastest quarterback ever. I've been hearing now from day one, and then I sit back and say, "Who did you lose to this year?" Oh, we lost to Dallas. Okay.
All right, there you go. Yeah.
So that's number 1. Number 2. Hey, they're winning. That's great. The coach has done a good job. He's got them fired up. Their schedule's been so-so. I haven't, nothing dramatic. I mean, they beat the Ravens, who've been like 500. They beat Green Bay, who's been suspect this year. And then a couple of Carolinas and a few more. And when they go into Philadelphia and they beat Philadelphia and a couple of these other games that I want to see on their schedule, that really looks a little bit more of the upper echelon. And then I'll say, hey, the Giants are for real and they got something going on. So I'm not sold on them just yet, but they've done a nice job. Their coach has really pumped that team up. We got the win on them. Hopefully we can do it again the second time. And by then Dak is back to the Dak level that we've seen, him be in the past.
We didn't have time to talk about this week because everything was going on. But, I heard one of my Tom Brady guys saying, Tom Brady, he stinks of shit. Yeah, well, he doesn't have an offensive line and, the tight ends are no good and, there's no defense. And I'm like, wait a minute. When he wins, he takes all the credit. But when he loses, now all of a sudden he doesn't have anybody around him. You know what I mean? That whole thing, just stay. Great quarterback. I'm not going to go down and argue the whole thing. But, let's just, you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean? It takes a team to win the whole thing.
Exactly. Sure does. And
a
coaching staff to go with it. Everything's got to gel together.
Absolutely.
And work together, and they had it for so long. So no qualms there. Yeah, absolutely.
Where Tommy doesn't have an offensive line, isn't that when Mahomes in the Super Bowl a couple of years back had the 2 injuries to the offensive line, and he spent the whole Super Bowl running for his life. It was like, well, Brady's taking him to school.
Yeah.
Nobody mentioned the offensive line, Anyway, all right, we gotta go. still feeling that scar there.
Hang in there, Paul. Hang in there.
Still feeling that scar.
I'm going with Zappy to start. You got Zappy or Matt?
Yeah, I got Zappy.
Okay.
The fever hasn't broke completely.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I think you're right. He's been moving the ball. So, all right, for Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos. Hey, have a great night. It's been a fun week to talk sports, and we'll talk to you again real soon.